Hello and welcome to the Supreme Leadership Summit. I am your host, Rachel Abba, and I am a Supreme Spiritual Guide and Courage Mentor to highly intuitive people. And I'm in the business of supporting highly intuitive women in particular become bold and feel seen and liberated to step out into the world and create tangible successes for themselves on their terms. And today I have with me none other than Rona Bissett, who is the founder of the Self-Help Hub for Women, where women come for all their personal development desires. She is based in the UK, I believe, just outside of London. And she literally, she just hit the ground running. I reached out to her and she's just like a supreme leader. She just said yes and prepped. And within it feels like within minutes, right? Not even hours. Like she was just like, I'm doing this for my community. She's all about empowering women and raising their vibration to the level where they become their own architects for their own lives. So I honor you. I salute you. I see you. Thank you so much, Rona, for joining us today. Your official title is you're a female transformation coach, correct?
Yeah. Female transformation
Wonderful.
coach. Absolutely.
Yes, I
Absolutely.
love it.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
my pleasure. And I'm just so looking forward to having our audience hear everything, for you to share your wisdom and tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to this work of transformation for women.
Personal development. My past in my previous employment, I worked in education for a very, very long time. And I worked with children and I did a lot of work around psychology where I dealt with children's behavior. So I was a safeguarding officer. I wasn't actually a teacher, I was a safeguarding officer. Did a lot of work around that. But what actually led me to personal development was when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I saw a lot of my female friends, my actual sister, a lot of people, they were having children and they were having children by themselves. And I was
Wow.
like, I don't want to go down that route. I just did not want to go down that route. So I did whatever I could to avoid doing the kind of single mother thing. And I'm not
Yes.
criticizing single mothers at all, but it was a route I didn't want to go down, unfortunately. But I still wanted to get married, have children. I wanted all of that. I wanted to, I wanted all that, but I wanted it in a family unit. My mum and dad have been married for 50 to 60 years. You know what I mean? So
wow.
that's kind of what I believed was supposed
goals.
to happen.
You were like that those are your goals, aspirational. Yes.
Well, unfortunately, when I got into my 30s, I ended up with fibroids and I had to have hysterectomy.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, that got taken away from me completely.
It was just off the table.
I was not
in the way you had envisioned.
The whole having children was not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen because I had the operation, and I remember after having that operation how down I became. It was like all of a sudden I wasn't a woman anymore. It was all of a sudden like you're put on this earth to do something, and I felt, well, I can't do it. I don't have the ability to do it anymore. It's been taken away from me.
And you felt like your identity, because you identified strongly with that. You had a very strong dream and image and vision of who you were becoming and what that, not fairy tale, but what your ideal life would look like. And then something, that you never factored happens.
Never factored. Happens.
And it took that off the table.
Completely took it off the table. And I got very down. I would say I even got depressed about the whole thing after I had the operation. I actually remember being in the hospital and sitting the day after the operation in the hospital crying. And another patient that was on the ward, she came over to me and she said to me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I'm in pain." And she said, "Well, why don't you get some painkillers like some paracetamol or ibuprofen?" And I remember thinking in my mind, it's not that kind of pain.
No.
It's not physical. It wasn't a physical pain I was feeling. It was almost like a loss, to be honest with you. It felt like, I'd lost something, which in a sense I had.
Death. It is a death of a particular identity of yourself as mother, and everything that would come with that. Yeah, death of a dream.
So when I did go, I was going home, I was going into recovery. my sister actually sent me. I mean, I don't know if you remember the times where they used to have iPods out. I had an iPod,
I
and
do.
my sister,
I remember
my sister sent
Discmans.
me.
Don't get me started.
Oh, do
Yeah.
you? My sister, she sent me an audio. Sorry, she sent me an audio of I think it was Tony Robbins, "Get the Edge."
Ah, okay.
And on this audio, there was this thing. There was a little thing where he had an incantation, and in an incantation, it was like saying an affirmation or a declaration over and
Yes.
over again. But it was about not just saying it; it was about the way you breathed, the way you moved. Everything was,
Yes.
encompassed into the whole thing.
Yes. It was
And I remember
intentional.
going walking. I remember going walking and doing the breathing exercises and saying it to myself over and over. And I was literally just saying every day in every way, I'm getting better and better, literally. And I'd spend 15, 20 minutes every single day doing
Like a
that.
mantra?
And
Like you were
yeah,
just, was it like a mantra? Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that just, it transformed the way I was feeling. But, because I remember about 2 weeks after the operation, I went to have it checked my stitches and everything checked.
Yes.
And this was back in the day. So there was no invisible stitches. This was like I actually had staples in my stomach. And I remember the nurse saying to
Oh,
me, we can I remember the nurse saying to me, we can take these out because you are at a situation where you've healed, after 2 weeks. And I was like, wow. She's like,
oh,
you've healed really, really fast. That's really fast. I've never seen anything like it before. And I was like, and I started to think, it was a lot about what I was doing, but that
yes.
wasn't the biggest thing. It was the way I was feeling. It was what it made me feel.
Powerful. Powerful.
It was how it made me feel. It was the way I was being able to be, I was being able, I started going back out again. I started going back to the gym. I started socializing again. So all of that kind of came into play. And from that, I just kind of went personal development crazy. So I read all the books. I've read
Yes.
The Secret and The Power and The Hero and The Magic and, Deepak Shakur and, all of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Wayne
You did
Dyer.
a deep dive. Yeah.
I just dived into personal development. And I
Yes.
think that gave me an insight of how I could use this to change what I was feeling and what was doing, what works for me.
Yes.
So I decided I think I always wanted to use it and I wanted to share it with others. That is just about it, sharing what I know with
Yes.
others
Yes.
so they can be able to use it.
Beautiful.
And one of the reasons particularly chose women of 40 and above is because I'm a woman of 40 and above. And it was like, well, you know what?
You're speaking
I
to
could relate.
yourself. Yes. And speaking to your experience, right?
I can relate. I mean, I know
Yes.
other people have totally different experiences and all of that, but I can relate and I'm able to express what I felt and share it with others. So it was,
Yes.
and I mean, my business is still quite new. It's, as I say, it's about a year old, but it's about I take it right back to basics. So right back to, I mean, where I start with it is at a thought. I literally
Yes.
start at what we think about, and are we
Yes.
even slightly aware of what we think about? A lot
Yes.
of us are literally walking around just doing what we're doing. We're just like on autopilot, and we're just
Got it.
continuously being on autopilot, and we have no idea with the thoughts that are going on in our mind, and we have no idea about the power
Of
of
the
these thoughts
thought.
that are going
The
that is going
impact
on in our
on
minds.
the impact of your thinking on your person, like on your
Absolutely.
reality. And you
Absolutely.
experience that whole idea, you know how you have that like physician heal thyself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what you started doing, and you started getting clarity around what the potential of this could be, not just for yourself, but for others as well, right?
Absolutely.
And then at that point, some of us might think, okay, let me go get a job doing this somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But you thought, let me create a business doing this for myself and
Yeah.
in service to other people. What
Because
was
I
that
think so.
conversation?
I think it is about one. It's about service and being able to give service to others.
Hmm.
And I think for me, it was a lot about doing it and learn. For me, it was a lot about learning while I was doing it. So
Hmm.
I don't think I know everything, and I'm like, I've got everything all
What?
sorted out. It's about continuously learning. but also it's about having control and making choices. And if you
Ah,
go and do it and you do it for somebody else, you're limiting yourself with control and stuff like that. So I'm more into, I want to have control, I want to make choices, and I want to be able
yes.
to develop by myself.
And what
And
is
it's the
control? Like, sorry to jump in, but what does control look like? Because we use that term, but it has baggage too. Like, what does that mean? You've already alluded to having some level of autonomy and say in like how you, like what services you might provide, how you navigate through that world. But what else does control? What can it mean for you?
I think it was about making the choice,
Hmm.
because I think what happens is sometimes, particularly when you work for somebody, so say
Hmm.
I was doing exactly the same job but working for somebody,
Yes.
I'll be doing
Yes.
it on a certain time. It would be doing according to their rota. I would be
Yes.
doing what how they wanted it to be done. And
Yes.
I wanted to take control, because when I work with people and I tell them about personal development and how to use personal development, I talk to them about having control of your life and taking your control and taking responsibility. So I
Yes.
feel I have to do that myself. I have to
Yes.
take responsibility. I
Yes.
have to say that I'm in control, because it can be a very frightful thing, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know
Yes.
how it's going to work out. It's a risk you're taking. You don't know how well your business is going to go. You don't know even if you're going to make any money. You have no idea. But it's about having that kind of belief in
Yes.
yourself.
Beautiful. This ties in perfectly because I mean, this summit is about, that worthiness conversation, around how are you thinking, how are you being to feel worthy, to activate that, what I believe is an innate worthiness within each and every one of us, right?
Absolutely.
And so, having that idea already around and really it's the clarity piece around how you want to be visible, how you want to show up in the world, how you want to be of service, what that would look like. You don't have the details, right, of what the business and da da da, like all the dots, but you have a framework of how
Absolutely.
your desire of how you want to be, of who you're becoming in
Exactly.
the world, someone who is free to make their own decisions and choices, someone who has a level of autonomy in their lives, right, to be able to show up on their terms. And so, immediately you thought, okay, if that's what I'm going for and this is how I'm feeling about it, and I've seen the results, then I'm willing to bet on myself. And this has been coming up quite often through the summit of you don't know how it's going to work out in the world. The one thing you can guarantee is your commitment to yourself and showing up
Absolutely.
fully, right? Taking committed action, being responsible, as you said, being accountable, so it's about your beingness that grounds you and that you're betting on. Everything else you get to experience. That's the journey. That's the
Yeah,
adventure. And
absolutely.
so you went for it, you
Absolutely.
created your business, you decided that it was going to be the hub, right? Self-help hub for this, like all your development needs for women
Yeah.
specifically, because that's where you're speaking from. And then what happened?
Um, that in itself is a journey. That in itself is a journey for me,
Yes.
because I actually did come from an employee. I worked for a long time. I've worked over 30 years of my life in different
As an
aspects. I told you I worked in
employee.
a,
Yeah.
I was in education for 17 years. So I worked as an employee. And when you go and work for yourself, it's a completely different headspace, and it's a completely different place you have to take yourself. And you
Yes.
literally have to become, there are certain elements of myself I had to change. There's certain habits I had to
Ooh,
change.
that you got to
There were certain
release.
I absolutely. And there were certain things
Wow.
I had to become, I had to change into. I had to say, well, you know what, I'm in control of this business. When
Yes.
do I work? Simple things like, where do I work from? Do I work from my desk today? Do I go to the coffee shop? Do I work from my
Yes.
bed?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
simple things like that. You
But
have to
making
make those decisions,
decisions.
but it's all about you making them. Nobody's
Yes.
going to tell you you have to do this, and this
You
is what
have
you
to
have to
get
do, and
up.
this is the project.
So
Nobody,
the
it's all about
discipline,
you.
I'm hearing a
Absolutely.
discipline piece,
Yeah,
right? Having
absolutely.
that
You have to be
discipline.
absolutely, you have to have that discipline, and you have to have that consistency. You have to be
Mm,
consistent in what you're doing and being able to maintain it. And I think one of the reasons I use the word transformational, I use the word
yes.
transforming, is because what happens is with us, I feel we are able to, there's certain times in our lives we are able to take action. So we
Yes.
will take action to do something, but and we'll be motivated to do it.
Hmm.
But motivation only lasts a certain period of time.
Are you
There
hearing
comes a
this?
time
Are you hearing
when
this?
you
Mm,
are not going to be motivated.
you're not going
So
to
there
feel
comes a
like
time
it.
where you're not gonna feel it's just like you go on you literally you go on a diet kind of thing, and you exercise right and you eat right for how many months, and then there comes a day where you just don't feel like doing it
I don't know
anymore.
what you're talking about, Rona.
You
No
just don't
clue.
feel like doing it anymore. And this is where the way you think about the way you eat and you think about the way you exercise comes
Yes.
into play. The beliefs you have around exercise, and if it does, if it's not in alignment, it's,
Mm,
then you find you put on the weight, and then you're like, oh my god, I've lost all this weight and I've put it all back on again. And it is, it's literally loads of little things just like that. And it's having these things in alignment. So for me thought is like it's almost, it's the first stage of development. It's the first stage of anything that happens.
yes.
you know we're here having this conversation today, but you saw me on LinkedIn, and it was
Yes.
a thought that took you to invite me for an
Absolutely.
invite. It was just a thought you had in your mind. You were like, I'm going to invite this lady. So, and now we're here having this conversation. So
Yes.
everything starts with a thought. And we've got to remember that. Even you and I, 50 years ago, my mum and dad had a thought, and here I am today. You know what I
Ta-da!
mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's taking it really, really back to basics. And
Yes.
because I think we take a lot of it for granted. We take our thoughts, a lot of what we think about for granted. I mean, especially everything social media, just on the phones, just like, all
Scrolling.
the stuff we're scrolling. What are we picking up? What is the information going in? What are we thinking about? We get into conversations we can get into conversations which can be very toxic and not, it's not serving us at all. And it's about, well, how is that affecting us?
Yes. What is
How
your
is it affecting?
intention
Because it
in
can,
this activity? What is your intention? What are you looking to create, and is it in alignment with your highest self, your vision for yourself and thoughts? What is it? You're the thinker who thinks the thought, that becomes the thing, or I don't want to butcher it, but it's this idea of, your thoughts become things. Like that's the only way. You start off with a thought, which is what I'm hearing you share. And that thought I mean, it's powerful. Your thoughts
oh,
are
absolutely.
powerful. You're literally a creator. And as you think, as a man thinketh, right? Um,
Yeah,
you know, that's who you become. That's who you're being.
absolutely.
So, bringing, and I know in your work, you've shared, you really work on this mindset piece because this is where it all begins. This is how you were able to shift yourself out of that state of depression and sadness and loss and victimhood. And you were able to draw yourself out of your story, right? Like you
Absolutely.
pulled
Absolutely.
yourself out of your story by reaching and evolving towards, I mean, you were using your mantras and, and slowly you began to inhabit your life again,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so much so that you had a thought of
Yeah,
how, wouldn't this be something? Let's explore it, and you create a business that is of service to other people, women in particular, to, you're inviting them on the same journey in their own way of their own evolution, their own transformation, their own autonomy, right? Their own freedom for them to be able to create their own path in a way that
absolutely.
serves their highest
Yeah.
purpose, you know.
And I and I
Wonderful.
and I feel that sometimes we don't recognize how certain things are affecting us so strongly. I remember
Mm.
just during COVID, like when we were on
Yes.
COVID, and it was during, I think it was March 2020. I remember I was watching the news
Not that
a
she
lot.
remembers.
I was watching the news a lot during that time. And in the
Ah,
UK, 800
yes.
people dying, 800 people dying, 800 every single day. I had a dream. I'll never forget this. I had a dream. I was standing in a bus stop and a woman behind me sneezed. And that night I got up and went to the bathroom. And after I washed my hands and everything, I took a wet rag and I wiped the back of my neck.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it was a dream, Rona. And I was like, this thing is too much. It's playing with what's going on inside of here. So
Yeah.
I literally had to stop watching the news. I think I watch news twice a week if I
This
do.
is powerful. No, thank you so much for sharing that because we might hear it and think, oh, intellectually we get it. But what you just shared is extremely powerful because our thoughts, can make ourselves ill. We can make
Physically.
ourselves experience a lot of things. I mean, within the transformation, sphere, there is that belief that, much of disease, like states of disease and
Yeah.
dis-ease, are originate from our thoughts and the collective consciousness, right? I'll quickly share with you because, this just came up for me. That dream that you had, and then that inclination to wipe the back of your neck. I remember when I was an infant, my mom had a dream. It was one of these like epic, because, come from a long line of dreamers. Epic dream where, this whole thing where something was poured on her, it was almost like acid
Uh-huh.
poured on her, and she was carrying me as a baby. I was an infant at the time, and in the dream she was carrying me, and as the thing poured, she, like, attempted to, like, shield
Oh dear.
me. Within a few days she had developed like blisters where it poured, and I too, as the baby who was not in her dream physically, I also developed in the exact pattern of her
Oh
shielding. We
wow.
both had blisters, and she told the story, like, how come, like, this was not, like, well, what happened? Is it, and she's like, I had a dream and I was in, it was like this whole like epic thing, a story for another time. And yeah, so the power of our belief and the power of our thoughts, because, and she truly believed that it had happened, but she had like astral projected and she was actually
Yeah.
there. That was her, that was what she had shared later, that she was there and so was I. And hence, but it's about the connectivity of our thoughts, no matter what dimension we're in. That's the through
Mhm.
line, right? Our thoughts.
Exactly.
So whether it be physical, whether it be spiritual, whether it be, emotional, right? That our thoughts are the through line that is like almost like the power um currency, right? It's a currency that flows across dimensions. Okay, now we're getting metaphysical. Okay.
Yeah.
So in your story, you're doing this, and what has your experience been in terms of like the feedback you get from your clients with this worthiness conversation and this power? Because like,
A lot of my clients, they're on a lot of them are on their own journeys, and
yes.
a lot of them are trying to, a lot of them are trying to be like, I want to be the person I used to be. I'm very down, I'm
Mm.
not happy. And they're looking for happiness, and
Ah,
my thing is you've already got it. It's
it's
inside of you.
there.
It's not for you to be reaching it. You're not going to be happy when you have to be
Yes.
happy now, and then things will happen. You cannot
Powerful.
be happy when, and a lot of people are looking for happiness. It's even like looking for success, and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, success is within you. It's about
Yes.
feeling successful. It's about
Yes.
believing in yourself. It's a kind of catch-22, but it's about, because the more confidence you get, the more successful you get, and it's a bit, it can be a
Which
catch-22,
came first, the
but it
chicken or
is,
the egg? Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing. But it's about finding things within yourselves. And a lot
Yes.
of people don't realize that a lot of my clients don't realize a lot of what they're looking for, they already have. I just
Yes.
kind of open their eyes and say, well, okay, let's look at it this way. Let's see it
So
this
it's
way.
about
So if,
perspective, right? Like,
oh,
because you're
completely,
talking about
completely.
perspective and yeah,
Sometimes I literally say, it is literally like putting on a pair of glasses. When you put
and
on a
looking
pair of
for them.
glasses, you find all of a sudden everything looks different. Whereas you couldn't see the different things that were there, and they were always there all the time. There's nothing has changed. It was
Yes.
there, and I remember having a conversation with the client of mine who was like, well, I just got laid off from a job, and I just broke up with my partner, and and it was all like, my life is like completely doom and
I'm
gloom. And it's
hearing
like, well,
freedom. I'm hearing, I'm
exactly.
like, oh,
What do you want to do? What do you want to do now? She's like, well, you actually, I want to go back to school. Well, there you go. There's the opportunity.
universe
You've
has
just had
cleared
an
a path for
opportunity. Yeah.
you.
All you have to do is, so it is about seeing things very, very differently. For a lot of my clients, it's about seeing things very differently and looking at things differently.
Yes, and relating to them differently, even though they've
I
always been.
apologize. I've got a bit of a cold.
That's okay. That's okay. I appreciate you. See, that's supreme leadership, commitment, showing up and being willing, because that's vulnerable. Like you're willing to be on here, not knowing whether she could have easily said, no, I'm coughing. I want to look a certain way and present myself a certain way. And she didn't. She's like, you know what? I feel strong enough. I might have a bit of a scratchy throat, but, here we are having this conversation and I'm willing to see where it goes. So I'm really, I'm glad you're here and I'm glad that you're willing to do it messy with me, right? Like that's really what this journey is about. You don't there are no guarantees as you were sharing at the top, right? We don't really know.
Yeah.
Yet we have a willingness to go on this journey, discover, and say yes. So if there was one thing, where can people find you? What is something that you want to share and leave with our audience today, Rona?
I have a YouTube channel called the Self Help Hub for Women
Beautiful.
/ personal development. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page, the Self Help Hub for Women 40 and beyond. And I have a website, the Self Help Hub for Women.co.uk.
Beautiful. So I'm going to take all that information. You'll provide that for me
Yeah,
after,
no problem.
and I will post that. This will be available on the Supreme Leadership Summit site, on the Supreme Leadership Summit page. So that way you can learn more about Rona, see what she's all about, see what services she has available. And now, like because of as a result of the pandemic, that we're still kind of like, dealing with, the world is so much smaller, and the whole um, you know, virtual landscape has made it possible and open things up for us to connect like we are now, right? So this is the new normal. So definitely don't be limited by boundaries and geography. If what Rona is sharing resonates with you and you see yourself in the data, you see yourself in her story, by all means, feel free to reach out to her and all our other experts that have been so gracious in coming on the Supreme Leadership Summit. Thank you so much, Rona. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much for having
you.
me. Thank
Yes.
you so
And I
much.
look forward to many more conversations in the future and bringing you some amazing content. So thank you. And for
Thank you very
everyone,
much.
you're welcome. And for everyone else, I'll see you in the next episode of the Supreme Leadership Summit. Bye for now.